Hey, Tanner. Just want you to know that God said He really likes people who sit close. Hey, we want to fill out some cards for Ron Kinn's father tonight. Um, it started with shingles, and then that guy's been at least over a year. He has been so challenged with things. So we just want him to know he's not forgotten. Can I get some volunteers to pass out cards and pencils? As in, can I get some volunteers to pass out? Thank you. You want the pencils or cards? Go. Thank you, Tanner. You faked me out. Here's some things that we want to share with you tonight. Congratulations to Preston and Hannah Bethea and the birth of Mary Addison Bethea on Tuesday. Baby and mom are both doing great. Speaking of babies, there's a baby shower honoring Emily Phillips. How come it's just Emily? That is this Sunday. I lost my place from 1:30 to 3 in the fireplace room, and they're expecting a little girl. They're registered at babylist.com. Thank you, sir. I want you to be aware that Debbie Copeland will be having surgery tomorrow. She fell and has a brain bleed. Tina Swinson, her mother passed away today. I talked a little bit to Tina. I see it as a blessing she was able to be here with her mom as she passed. So no arrangements yet. That just happened today. What did I miss? I skipped around. Romeo's is a week from Wednesday. Family game night is August the 8th. So when you get done with your cards, you can either place them on this table where I'm putting the pencils, or over where Jackie is sitting at the cash register. Either one of those places will be fine. We have a special guest with us tonight. I'm going to be interviewing Dale Intrican, and a little bit later I'm actually going to ask Rita as well to come up and ask her a few questions. I'm going to ask Dale here in just a moment to just tell us a little bit about himself, his family, and what are you doing with your retirement, but whatever he wants to answer there. But I just wanted to share, Dale's one of our shepherds. He's one of our longest tenured shepherds here. In my interview process, looking to see what God was saying to us about moving here, one of the factors that was Dale and some of the insights that he had about the church. And it really intrigued me, and it really surprised me about some of the things that he understood about the church and how the church works. And so it's been a pleasure for me to move here and work with Dale and Rita. And we love Nita Hartzog, and when her and her crew retired, we were like, what are we going to do? And Rita stepped in, and because Rita stepped in, Dale stepped in. And so I don't know about you, but that was a pretty awesome meal tonight. How about we show our appreciation to these two? So Dale, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your family, how many kids you have. Do you have a special daughter in your life or anything? Or?
No. That would get me in trouble. We've been married 47 years this year, in spite of the fact that all of my classmates tried to talk her out of marrying me. So it's still working. The girls are all married. Paige is here, Haley is in Auburn, and Ansley's in Nashville, so we keep the roads hot a little bit. I was a dentist for 43 years. Rita was a med tech, and she owned a gift shop for a while. And now both of us are grandparents staying at home. So that's about it.
Awesome. I don't know how long ago it was. I got to hear a little bit of Dale's story, and I think you're in for a blessing tonight. I really do. Sometimes we look at our leaders, our shepherds, and they've got it all together. They've never had any problems in life, and life is just sails smoothly for them. And that's not always the case. And so I'll just start by Dale, share with us a little bit of your journey with us.
Well, let me preface it by saying we were in Tim's first journey class here. And Rita actually signed up first and then talked me into coming into it. And it is an excellent class, and there's a lot of good things that come from it. But I guess for me, one of our assignments was to write out our journey. And it's not education or places that you move. He's talking about your journey with God. And, you know, a lot of you are probably like me, and you think, I don't have a journey. I mean, I don't have a story that anybody would ever want to hear. But that's probably the biggest thing I got out of that class, because it makes you take a look at the places you've come from and the lessons you've learned and why. And if it doesn't help anyone else, take the journey class and write out your journey, because I've probably edited it a half a dozen times since then, because I can remember things that I didn't, previously. Plus, some more things have happened. I mean, my journey's 3 years longer than it was last time. So,
if I remember right, you shared this with your kids. Is that right?
Yeah.
And that was a blessing for them as well
and my brother.
To know more of your story.
And half of it my brother didn't know about. So, Anyway, we all think we're not very unusual, but so I'm going to read most of it. Last time I read this, I couldn't get through it, so just give me a minute if so. Okay, so one thing I've both experienced and observed in life is that kids are pretty much, they all share the same experience. There are economic, health, and social differences, but most every kid thinks that their life is just normal. They don't fret over their house or their food, whether their clothes are fancy or ragged. They just exist and live. They love their parents, they play with their friends, they go to church, and they think their childhood is really nothing exceptional. They are just like everybody else. And mine was too. I had two parents, grandparents. I played outside mostly. Attended school, and I went to church every time the doors were open, because that's what you did back then. I even had a grandmother who led singing by singing alto from the second row in church. And that's also normal, right? I have a brother, and even though we played sports, we were scouts, and we did all the things of childhood, our lives really revolved around church. And then about the 7th grade, my parents divorced. And that wasn't exactly normal at the time, but then again, it really wasn't that abnormal either. My mom had been having some mental health issues, and life was a little bit strange in our house, especially after my dad moved out. But still, church was still the one constant in our lives, until it wasn't. And right now, looking back, I don't know that the Church of Christ environment in Gadsden, I I didn't know at the time that the church there was extremely conservative, because that's all I knew. You know, church was church, and I didn't know there was anything different. The congregation that we went to, that my family even helped to plant, was only 4 doors down from our house. Mom wasn't going a lot then, but then my dad either picked us up to go to the church he now attended, or often we just walked. By the time I was in high school, we still lived with Mom, who had remarried. And about this time, our church got a brand new preacher who made it his business to run the church like he thought it was supposed to be run, meaning the way he wanted it. So part of his agenda was to see that my mother was disfellowshipped because of her remarriage. And at the time, because of what I had been taught growing up, I didn't actually disagree with that. After all, they had book, chapter, and verse for everything that they did up to a point. But what I did not agree with was that when they disfellowshipped my mom, they basically disfellowshipped my brother and I, because they could no longer come to our house. So while I didn't like it, my mother went ballistic. She had her faults, but she was a great mother in so many ways. And that was the first time I realized, I guess, that you do not punish your children, that you do not punish children because of their parents' actions. The next thing I knew, my mom had called a meeting with all the elders and the preacher, and they agreed to meet with her. And when I asked if I could go, she agreed. That was probably the most intense and uncomfortable gathering I've ever attended, because she demanded to know who was behind punishing her kids over her actions, and what were they going to do about it. And all I remember was a total silence. I do remember she lit into them, calling them all hypocrites, while pointing to one of the elders that had slept with her on a number of times, and pointed to the preacher, and letting the cat out of the bag, told everyone that his unmarried high school daughter was currently pregnant. And I still don't know how she knew that, but it was true. So needless to say, the rest of that night was a blur. I don't even remember going home. I do remember that it was the last time I ever set foot in that building. And it's also a larger part of why I promised myself that I wouldn't ever raise my family back in Gadsden. It was a good place to grow up until I realized it wasn't. Okay, not too long after that, my brother, who is 9 years younger, went to live with my dad and my stepmom, and I left for Auburn. So I don't really know what I expected from church in Auburn, because I just knew I would go, because that's how I was raised. And I really don't remember thinking I had an option of not going. Apparently that's the thing, though. Anyone who knows much about the Auburn Church and its relationship with the Student Center probably knows there's always been sort of a disconnect there, in that the Auburn Church was rather conservative, at least 50 years ago. And it really wasn't too unlike what I was already used to, except better. By then, I guess I just assumed all churches were alike. But attending the Auburn Christian Student Center convinced me that there are options, that there are different ways of doing things. And it actually changed my life in a lot of ways. I received a lot of teaching there. The environment was extremely loving, and everybody just loved each other. It was also the first time and place I had learned anything about grace. And I was probably 23 then, because I went to a junior college first. It is where I was first exposed to contemporary Christian music and singing songs about how joyful our Christian walk could actually be. And that's where I met Rita. After Auburn, both of us moved to Birmingham. We started attending Homewood basically because some of our Auburn friends were there. And once again, I experienced a totally different Christian environment and experience from anything else. I'd always been taught to read and believe the Bible, but depending on what parts you're taught to read, how you are supposed to interpret it, and who you should be listening to explain it to you, makes all the difference in the world. Auburn and Homewood, and attending some church events in Nashville, reading a lot of different Bible translations on my own, and exposing myself to a variety of a lot of people smarter than me, opened my eyes to believe what living the abundant life really means. So Rita and I soon married, and after dental school, we moved to Montgomery. We visited around some and decided to attend Landmark at the time. Now, this was in '79, and the preacher there was Gary Bradley Jr., who oddly enough preached at the church in Gadsden my grandmother went to at one point. So anyway, the atmosphere there was real good. I was comfortable around Gary, and it was a very upbeat place at the time. And 2 weeks later, he announces he's leaving. So he ended up going to Huntsville to Mayfair. Hang on, I got a page missing. I guess we're going to ad-lib the rest, because I don't know where the rest is. Anyway, we stayed there. They ended up hiring a preacher who used to preach gospel meetings at the church I attended in Gadsden. So I wasn't too thrilled about that, but I thought I'd give him a chance. But it hadn't really changed. So Rita and I stayed at Landmark 9 years before we just felt we had to make a change because of our kids and our young family. So that was just right after Lakewood and Druid Hills merged. So we were impressed that two churches could actually get along that well, because that was not my experience growing up. So we came here in 88. We're still here. I've been an elder going on 28 years. So here we are. Let me pull up that last page, or I'm going to forget something. That's when you bring an iPad with you.
We want to hear the Vaughn Park part, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I'm probably the most progressive elder here, or the most liberal. And I don't really apologize for that, because I think every church needs a balance. If everybody thinks the same way about everything, that's not unity, that's uniformity. And the Bible doesn't ever expect uniformity. We landed here, and I believe it has been great here. And I'll wrap it up with a couple of basic things that I've learned over the years. Number one is that the gospel, or the good news, is really pretty simple. It's really pretty simple. It's just sometimes we, the people, mess it up and complicate it, where I don't think it's all that complicated. Number two, there is no pattern or model as to how we're supposed to do church, and that we really have a lot more freedom than we usually exercise. Number three, that loving God and our neighbors as much as ourselves really fulfills the intent of all the other commands. And number four, that grace and forgiveness are the two most important things that I wish I'd learned a lot earlier. So I guess, study. Listen to people that you don't normally listen to. Read the Bible on your own. Pick a new translation and read it. Read them both at the same time. That would be great. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, anyway.
Well, did he say anything that surprised you? I'm going to...
This is a Q&A.
I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to make a statement. In that first journey group, when you shared your story, it was a turning point for the whole group. Because if a professional person like you, one of our elders, somebody we respect and look up to, could be transparent and normal like the rest of us and share that, then we all felt like we could share.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I've told Dale several times that was the turning point, and I think it's also the turning point of every journey group after that. I've never seen journey groups share to the depth that these people have, and it really started with Dale. So thank you. I'm going to ask Rita if she would come and join us. There's Dale's story, and then there's the wife's version that we need to get. So, so I guess I'm going to ask a little bit about you, Rita. Were you raised as conservative as Dale was?
Well, I sort of think back in the 50s and 60s, most all Southern Churches of Christ were conservative. There might have been a few outliers, but for the most part, I think most people were teaching the same doctrine and the same way to do worship and the same way to serve God. So I think that was sort of a pattern that went throughout, especially the South. I grew up at Capitol Heights Church of Christ, and we had probably about 200 or so members. We didn't hear a lot of hellfire and brimstone. We weren't beat over the head with anything. We had a very soft-spoken, gentle, kind preacher that, although he was preaching the same things others were preaching, it was in a more understated way. We were not beat over the head with it. We got enough of that at the gospel meetings we all attended. So, because we did attend them all. I think everything was the same, pretty much the same thing was taught, but like I said, a little more understated. I knew the 5 steps of salvation. I knew a lot of Bible stories because we had the sweetest, kindest Sunday school teachers that imparted those to us. I knew pretty much the do's and don'ts and the boxes that you check. And I certainly was very aware of our stance on instrumental music. I did worry a little bit about my Baptist and Methodist friends. Their salvation was hanging in the balance. But anyway, my memory of that time of my life was really of the faithfulness and the love of my parents and the people that they surrounded me with. That little church loved me. They loved all those around me. They would have gone to bat for me at any time. They checked on me. They cheered me on in whatever I undertook. And so it was a church of love and acceptance, and really was produced a great security in me at that time that truly shaped my life. I mean, it was a foundation that I believe shaped my life. Those people were and still are some of the dearest people to me, and I will forever be thankful to them.
I think the Bible does say something about love, doesn't it? And there's something in there about that? Dale mentioned you met Dale at Auburn.
Yes.
And he mentioned the Auburn Student Center, Homewood Church, and Vaughn Park Church as having an impact. Can you address a little bit of the impact it had upon you, or the impact that you saw on Dale, or both? Or
So when I graduated high school, I had just barely turned 17, which was a little young, but I went off to Lipscomb that summer quarter. So I was 2 months into being 17, and it was a long way from home, and I was homesick some, and really I was sort of adrift when I got there because I had come from this little 200-member church where it was my security. It was what I knew. I loved church. I loved going to church. I loved singing. But all of a sudden, I was dropped into a town that had huge churches. I didn't have a car, so I was at the mercy of roommates and friends to get me to church when or if we went to church. And most of the time we did, but I never found a home there. We sort of went from church to church, and you know, if you do that, you don't ever really get involved. So I never was comfortable there. And by the end of the year, I was homesick. I wanted to come home, and my parents agreed, and I decided to go to Auburn. So my roommate was my best friend from high school, and she also was a member of the Church of Christ. So she had already been at Auburn a year. So she introduced me to the Christian Student Center, Auburn Christian Student Center. So I began to attend there on Thursday nights to their devotional. And we started off with about 35 people. And by the time Dale and I left, we had over 200. So it was a big time of growth. And but it was, of course, it was there that I met Dale. And it was not long after attending the Student Center that I knew I had found my people. Auburn at the time was about 14,000 students, which is a big sea of people for someone that is not real outgoing and someone that comes from, like I said, a small church. And so it was a huge adjustment. But when I went to the Student Center, I could see these were my people, and I felt at home. And so I spent a lot of time there, more time, my parents would say, than I did studying. And so anyway, there were lots of late night card games and
Santa Freeze Run.
Santa Freeze Run. I mean, anyway, I spent too much time there, but I loved every minute of it. But it was there also that I began to hear about from the different teachers, and some were students, and some were not. But I began to hear about a relational Jesus, a relational Father. And that was, I mean, like I said, I sort of knew all the do's and don'ts, and I think you mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. That's not good. But I knew those, but I think this was my first introduction to discovering my own faith. I had really had I went to church. I knew to go to church, and I had done everything my parents expected. But it wasn't until I went to Auburn that this opened the door for me discovering my own faith. And it was really an amazing experience and opened my eyes to a new thought process and about God, and it opened a more personal relationship with Him. So Auburn Student Center was very critical in my spiritual growth. From there, we both moved to Birmingham to attend school and decided to go to Homewood to church. We were not yet married, so we were living apart, but we were not yet married. So we became a part of the Young Professionals class. And there, they did that really well at Homewood. They had teachers and mentors that were, of course, older than us, that, they just surrounded us with acceptance and anything we had questions about. They were good teachers, and again, it just, by then, I'm beginning to catch on. There's a little more to just checking some boxes off, or just being a good person. So we married the summer before Dale's senior year of dental school, and we joined the young married class at Homewood. And again, they did that very well. The couples that were a little older than us, that maybe had young children, they were not older, but they were older than us, just opened their arms to us and plugged us in and began to show us ways to serve as a couple. And before we knew it, we were helping lead the youth, which was scary. But anyway, that last year in Birmingham, we learned so much from those couples about God and ways to serve God, and really what it meant to have close couple friends who loved God. We moved here rather unexpectedly, really. We didn't intend to move back to my hometown, but we did. And we went to Landmark for 9 years, and then we came to Vaughn Park just after the merger. And again, through the love and kindnesses of the people here, and some of you are sitting right here, we knew we had found our forever home with God's people. So it is you guys that brought us to Vaughn Park. We went to a lot of singings. We went to card parties. We went to all kinds of gatherings, and there was just a total acceptance, and we never looked back. And so it was just a joy to find our forever home here.
I love that you all hear the importance of people in all of that. If I could, just for a second, though, I want to go back when you were at Auburn. You mentioned something about your parents and your studies and things like that. Having two current Auburn students, could you address the importance of making sure that your studies are taken care of and your grades are kept up with? Or?
Well, no. Because I had a lot of fun.
Well, since one of my Auburn students is sitting here, I got to say I'm very proud of him. He's doing a great job keeping up with his studies. So I'm intrigued, and I'm guessing other people are too. So I'd like to hear. I'm enjoying hearing more of your story. So who else? I enjoyed yours, Dale. Who else or what else impacted you spiritually, and why?
Well, I have to give my parents a lot of credit. I can't leave them out. They were loving. They surrounded me with people that loved me, and that was sort of the one thing I took away from childhood and what I wanted for my own children. So after coming to Vaughn Park, I was introduced to several gospel teachers through videos and through ladies' classes. Among those were Priscilla Shire, Beth Moore, and Kay Arthur. These women demonstrated a hunger and a thirst for God and His Word that was so infectious and I wanted it. I had studied through my life, or called it studying, but I don't think I had delved into the depth of the Word. And those women inspired me to do that. Did I believe everything they said or everything they believed? No. But it prompted me to get into the Word and study. And so those were, the Bible began to make more sense. They had a way of blending the Old and the New Testament, tying it together. I had always grown up, and the Old Testament were some stories, and they were our history lesson, but didn't really have a whole lot to do with our present day gospel or our present day church. But as wrong as I was, I began to see that it has everything to do with it. And their love for that just, it was infectious. I wanted it. And so I began through inductive Bible study, through listening to other teachers, some of the ladies here, and you know who you are, begin to connect the Old and New Testaments to me, and how that was a pattern set way before, from the beginning of time, and how beautiful God wove it together. And of course, it was also around this time Dale had a love for music. We both enjoy music, and he really has a love for music, and we began to go to some conferences and some workshops in that regard in Nashville and in Searcy and other places, and there we were able to hear other thoughts and ideas about worship, about praising God, about ways we could serve Him through various other teachers. It was not just a music workshop, it was sort of everything. So we got the privilege, really, of going to other classes and hearing different thoughts and different ways of looking at things, and that influenced me, and I know it did him. Then, as God would have it, some real trials came in our life. We had been married we are married 47 years. And things rocked along in the beginning pretty well until they didn't. And we had a very serious health scare with Dale. At the same time, my father died, and it was all a pretty traumatic experience. And then at some point, back several years ago, and I'm sure most of you remember, we had a grandson to pass away. So life was not always easy. We had teenagers. We had the problems and the hurdles that come with teenagers. So, things have not always been perfect, but God has allowed us to experience those and deepened my faith, and I think Dale's faith, and our trust in Him. So, but through these 47 years of marriage, my greatest earthly influence has been Dale. His trust in God to help me get through struggles, and to help him get through struggles and obstacles, have been a real faith builder for me. I have watched him struggle and work through these things, and that has built my faith. I've been fortunate to have a front row seat to his development as an amazing spiritual leader in our family, and also as a leader at Vaughn Park. He loves this family at Vaughn Park. I see him pray for Vaughn Park and struggle with decisions, and he loves this family. But so many times for me, he guided me into truth, and he walked together with me through our trials and our struggles, some really tough times in our life. And He's led me into a greater walk with God.
Thank you, Rita. I love that. I just love hearing what she just said about her husband, didn't you? That was.
I read her answers to those questions, but she hadn't answered that last week.
I was wondering about that when she was saying that. So, our whole purpose this summer is real life answers, and that's Jesus. And so, again, we're hearing personal examples of struggles and trials and challenges. And Jesus is the real answer. The church represents Jesus, but the church doesn't always act like Jesus, does it? Let me ask you again, how many of you have been hurt by a church or church people? Just raise your hands, keep them up. Just look around. That's the way it goes sometimes, isn't it? So I want to come back to Dale, and can you give us some advice when you're hurt by the church?
Just don't be surprised, because, you've always heard a hospital is a place for sick people, not well folks. Well, a church is a place for sinners, not perfect people. And imperfect people are going to disappoint you. That we all have our issues with jealousy, or somebody hurt my feelings, or they didn't like what I had on that day. I mean, there's all kind of stuff that goes on, and a lot of us think the way we interpret or believe something is the only way. But I would say, just if you've been hurt, just understand all these people aren't any better than you, and they probably don't know a lot more than you. And trust yourself to read the Bible on your own. Read several. And just remember, the people that have hurt you are probably hurting in other ways that are oftentimes causing them to act that way. So you just have to give others the grace that you would like to get back.
Thank you. I just, you made me think that I hear sometimes people say, well, I didn't have a normal childhood, or I don't have normal circumstance in my life. Out of curiosity, if you would raise your hand, who here is normal? So go ahead and turn to the person on your right and say, you're a mess. Go ahead, it'll make you feel better. So I think that's one of the powers of the church is, yes, the church hurts us from time to time because people are a mess. We all are. We have all said things and done things that we regret. Jesus is the answer. We're just simply trying to emulate him. I just feel like I need to close with Dale has a passion for singing and for song. So let's go back to your song-leading grandmother. How many of you had an experience like that? I remember, at a small church, and the lady sat on the front or second row, and there was a guy that started it, but you you tried to ignore him because he couldn't do it. So yeah, several of you.
He actually just raised his hand, and my grandmother started it because he couldn't find the right note.
So just music has played a vital part of your journey. Just talk about a little bit more about that.
Everybody has a love language, and that comes pretty close. It's just music can really. It has a lot of emotion in it. It has a lot of life in it. I can always remember the lyrics, to a song I couldn't read. I mean, I couldn't tell you anything else that I've memorized like that. So it's really such a good communication tool. And I'll step out on a limb here in that personally, I don't have a problem with instrumental music because I don't think God liked it in the Old Testament. He's told us it's going to be in heaven. So what is this, a break right here? I mean, how has God changed if he's always the same? I think that's something we missed. Now, all that being said, I don't want it in the church I go to because I love a cappella. And even the churches of Christ that I've gone to that have gone instrumental, it is good in a way, but it's a concert in a way. So it's not anything I'd ever want to bring in, but I'm not about to condemn anybody for it. It's just a different way, and I think we actually missed it. So, I can resign next week, right?
Do you want us to take a vote? Is that what you want us to do? So, do you all have any idea what it takes to sit up here and to share a part of your journey and in some ways expose yourself from your hurts and pains in the past? I want you to show your appreciation for Dale and Rita and sharing with us tonight. They put a lot of work into it.
It's still going.
In talking to them, he wrote it and rewrote it and talked. And is that a question, Jane, or just a comment? Because we talked about question and answers, and they're like,
Personal experience. Dale and Rita also are very, very generous people. Years ago, I went to them. I wanted to help a young man, and I explained the situation to him. Without hesitation, they got out their checkbook and wrote a sizable amount of money for me and just handed it to me. I appreciate it.
Wow.
I left my checkbook home.
These are good people, and I think it's been good for us, for you to hear our shepherd's hearts, and tonight a shepherd's wife's heart about things. So know a little bit about the people that are leading us. So next Wednesday night, I've invited John Bowman to be with us. Most of the people I've asked have been us, but I stepped out here with John Bowman, who oversees Hope Inspired Ministries. If you don't know what that is, they're taking people who are struggling keeping a job, finding a job, knowing how to get a job, and they bring them in and they spend time training, teaching them how to do a resume, how to put that together, how to dress for a resume, how to pursue a job, how to keep a job. I had some amazing success stories. And I know it's going to hit with some people because sometimes we feel like, why don't they just go get a job? We always think that people are where we are and that they understand what we understand and they know what we know, and we take for granted what we know. John Bowman is doing an absolutely amazing work at him. He's going to bring somebody with him, kind of a success story, but it's kind of the pattern through this whole thing. I'm asking John to come in and share a little bit about what they're doing. But my questions are geared more to why, John? Why are you doing this? What is your passion for God and for these people? And I think it's going to be a huge blessing. We got about 2 or 3 minutes. I think if you could tell us a story or two on Paige when she was growing up, I think that would be great. No, thank you all so much. Let me pray, and we'll go. God, you are so good. and so patient, and so forgiving, and so kind. You are our creator and our recreator. You give us second chances and third chances and fourth chances and fifth chances. You take us for who we are and where we are, and Father, you bring people into our lives to mold us and change us and grow us. And we just stop for just a moment and say thank you. Thank you for loving us enough to teach us about you. And thank you for the people that you brought in our life, Father, to help us to know and see you. So tonight we give you thanks for Dale and Rita. We pray, Father, you would bless them for really the faith step that they took tonight. And we pray in all things and all ways, Father, that you would be glorified. Through Christ we pray. Amen.